Hey, I'm Blue Screen, and you're about to listen to horror stories from Reddit. I work on a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere by a ranch hand 1670. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe it's to get my story out. Maybe it's to make sense of the so many weird and fucked up things I've seen and experienced while working on this one farm. For context, I'm 22 and live out in the middle of nowhere. West Nebraska, to be exact. This is the area between the city of Des Moines and Denver, where the only things that you can see are the ever-growing corn stalks for miles, and the occasional cow herd or two. I'm not in love with the state. In fact, before I moved over here over a decade ago, I never even knew that the land was habitable. Unfortunately, though, I'm living proof that people do in fact live in this giant corn maze of a state. The farm I mentioned earlier also resides in the middle of nowhere, with the closest neighbors being well over a mile away. But most of the neighbors around here aren't the type to loan you a cup of sugar if you asked, even after traversing a mile to ask. The farm is located about an hour, if you were speeding, from the nearest town. You might ask why I travel so far for work, and I'll tell you that I have no idea. Probably loyalty from all the years that I've spent going there and attending horseback riding lessons. Regardless, I am one of the 3 stable hands working on this farm. The farm is owned by one of the best riders around, and her husband. They're both in their late 20s and need all the help they can get organizing and maintaining the farm. So, I work year-round. The majority of the work I do is livestock-oriented. I wasn't born on the farm, so I have no idea how to work any of the large machines, though I can manage some of the smaller ones. I, along with 2 other farm hands, do tasks watering and feeding the horses, chickens, dogs, cows, etc. I help teach some of the horse lessons, but the owner is mostly in charge of those. Before most of the lessons, I catch and track up horses, which might also add up the title groom to my resume. It's important to note that I've been coming to this farm since I was 12. I and the owner, my trainer for horseback lessons, have grown up together since she started teaching me, when she was still a teen. I've been working here since I was still a teen, and so some of these important dates are long lost in my head. Now, with this all in mind, I can move on to some of the more pressing issues on the farm. All the weird stuff that's been happening around me. First off, none of it started happening until the construction of the new indoor arena. The arena was built about 5 years ago, and it's really just an arena. The ground is sand, and there's a little sitting area inside for parents to watch their kids. Pretty standard arena to me. But for some reason, the weird stuff started showing up around the time its grand opening. Or maybe it's just as far back as I can remember. Like I said earlier, my memory's just a bit fuzzy. Regardless, for the 4 to 5 years, I've been consistently meeting a barrage of freak accidents, odd people, and just downright terrifying things head-on while on this farm. Most memorable was when I went on a trail ride with a horse named Pilgrim through the woods surrounding the farm. It was mostly for fun, but also to get him ready for when the younger kids would ride him through the trails. He's a pretty sound horse. He just gets a little scared in those woods for reasons I now understand. Because the closest neighbor is 1.3 miles away by ATV while off-roading, I have never once come across someone in the woods whom I've not previously met through lessons. Here's where I'll mention the owner of the property once had an agreement with the hunter in the area. Allow him to come and hunt some of the coyotes and deer on her property that come and steal from her livestock. For reasons that are still unknown to me, and seemingly everyone else on the farm, she and the hunter terminated this agreement, but he was still scouring around the area whenever she left the property. To try and prevent this, her husband set up some cameras so that they can get evidence of his trespass and have him arrested for it. Unfortunately, cameras have never captured him, so whenever I go into the woods alone, I always think about the hunter. What if he's still right there and accidentally shoots me? I'm here trotting up and down the trails in the woods when I get about 100 feet away from the first creek on the property. And as I get closer, The moans of an elderly person, surprisingly similar to my grandmother, had sounded after she broke her hip. So, my brain went into overdrive. I canteered my horse up the edge of the creek so that I might be able to peer down at whoever was there. I quickly jumped off my horse, disregarded his reins. It's a beginner's lessons horse, so he's normally pretty good at standing still. Plus, we're next to a small patch of grass, so he isn't going anywhere. As I'm peering over the edge of the creek, about 4 feet down, right next to the water, I spot a small, tattered piece of greenish cloth. Adrenaline still pumping, I jumped down the little cliff and picked it up to see if there was any blood on it. There wasn't. All of a sudden, the moaning sounds resumed from the top of the creek, where my horse is still standing about 25 feet away from the drop of the cliff, 4 feet above me. At this point, I'm thinking some lesson students trying to mess with me in the woods, so I was ready to get up there and tell them off. I climbed back up the top of the little cliff of the creek, ready to see the face of a 12-year-old, when I'm met with a horrifying visage of a woman, no younger than 75, staring back with the most menacing smile while she strokes my horse on the head. On the inside, I'm freaking out because this woman, who just came out of nowhere, is blocking my only means of escape. I didn't know what to do, so I opened my mouth. "Hey, you aren't supposed to be here," I said, the elderly woman never breaking her unnatural smile from her face. She moves her body so that it's facing the horse, but her head is facing me, almost 180 degrees in the wrong direction, and continues to pet my horse while he goes down on the weeds. I thought I was going to be sick. I knew that this woman wished ill upon me immediately, so I resolved to get out of there as fast as possible. Luckily for me, my horse is a glutton for anything sweet, so I always carry treats with me whenever I ride him. Without taking my eyes off the creepy woman, I grabbed one of his treats from my back pocket and held it in my hand. He starts moving towards me. What does that woman do? She takes a step with him. For every step he's taking, she's taking 2 to keep up with his strides. I feel sick. I whistle for him to speed up, hoping that he understands what I'm asking, and surprisingly, he does. But so does the woman. As my horse comes up to me trotting, that woman is right beside him, sprinting. Because of her apparent age, I expected the woman to be much slower, but again, she never did what I expected her to do. My horse runs up to me and I jump on his back from the ground, not caring if I get situated before getting the hell out of there. But he was expecting a treat, not this trick, so he lets out a small buck in defiance, which ends up nailing that woman right in the shoulder. Her strides come to a halt, and I can see clearly that her arm is not properly in the socket. Before the moment is just too long, I kick my horse into the fastest canter I can manage in the wooded area. I look behind me. That smiling woman is still staring at me, with her arm cradling both her head and the shoulder. I silently vow to give this horse all the treats he can eat, and gallop back to the barn. The entire time back, I took extra care to stay outside of the woods. But in the corner of my eye, I imagined the woman just out of reach of me, sprinting alongside the horse. That and the feeling of being watched allowed me and Pilgrim to get home in record time. I never told the owner, and I've only asked the other farmhands once if they'd seen anything weird in the woods, to which they replied, "No, oddest thing out there is that concrete post in the middle of the 4th acre." I don't know if I believe them, but I know there's nothing normal about that part of the woods. Since then, I've never gone into the woods without another rider, my newly purchased switchblade, or one of the Irish wolfhounds on the property. Thanks for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed. I actually have part 2 and 3 recorded and ready to be edited for another video, so stay tuned for that. Sorry if the quality wasn't all there and my pacing was a bit poor, and if the narration was just generally a bit inconsistent. This was my first narration, and I'm still trying to get used to everything and figure out what works for me and such. It'll probably be like this for a while until I start getting comfortable with narrating and editing and everything. But either way, I really hope you enjoyed yourself and have a nice night.